20 Minute Setswana Cultural Insert Lesson 2. Welcome to this cultural insert. This is the part where we delve a little bit deeper into the culture of the language, and we speak to people that have obviously learned this language in some form of way. So we are sitting here with John Rath. And John, welcome.
Thank you very much.
So you grew up in Vredefort,
Yes.
and the workers around you, your dad, he wanted them to speak Sotho to you. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
All right. So he didn't want them to speak English to you.
No
or
Afrikaans.
Or Afrikaans. Which means that you were forced to immerse yourself in the language, which is a great way to learn. And how long did it take you to pick up the language?
Well, it's difficult to say exactly. I grew up with a bunch of Sotho-speaking friends as well.
Okay.
So all in all, I'd say probably about 2 years, I think.
Okay.
Obviously, I've gone grey a bit in some of the areas. But when I was still at school, my mom and dad couldn't really tell me apart from the other kids on the farm.
That's amazing. That's very cool. That's very cool. So obviously what we're doing here, we're busy with a Twana language course. And the reason I brought you into this conversation is because you have grown up to speak Sotho, but it's very close to the Twana language, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So you moved to Potchefstroom. When did you move to Potchefstroom?
I started studying in 2004.
Okay, so you obviously you were in Vredefort for a long time speaking Sotho, and not too long ago you moved to Potchefstroom, where they generally speak Twana, but you could help yourself.
Yeah, pretty much.
That is wonderful news to all the listeners learning this language, because this means that you're almost learning two languages at the same time, which is great news. Now, let's take an example, for instance. If I were to say, okay, John, you understand what I'm saying?
Yes,
correct.
You're asking how I'm doing.
All right. Would that be different in Sotho, by the way?
Not that much. It would be the same response. So
All right.
basically, when okay.
Okay.
That's like more the formal response. But John, normal like speaking terms, I would just go ujwang, which pretty much means how are you? It's the same thing.
Okay. Now this is what I want to touch on, because obviously I've heard a lot about people studying a language, especially at university level, and the problem they have is that they struggle to communicate with the average native speaker on the streets.
Yes, that's correct.
So I obviously take it that you speak more of a slang Twana,
Yes.
street Twana. Is that
That is correct, yes.
Okay. And reading and writing, is that?
Well, I can help myself reading because I obviously can pronounce the phrases, so I know what they should look like.
Okay.
But I won't say that I'm necessarily grammatically correct.
Okay.
But I'd be able to help myself reading. Writing's a bit of a different story, but
Alright.
reading would definitely be all right.
Well, I have to say that in experience with languages as well, it doesn't really make sense to me to read and write a language perfectly, but not be able to speak it, because it's all about communicating.
Yes, that's true.
All right. One or two questions regarding what you just said, because you obviously have certain words, you've picked up some phrases, and it's a little bit different to Twana. In this lesson, we've learned how to say, for instance, "Ke tla go bona bosigo," okay, which means I will see you tonight. "Ke tla go bona bosigo." Is that something you can understand what I'm
Yes.
saying, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
and it's very similar to the Sotho as well. I think actually if you would pronounce the Sotho part like formally, as it is grammatically correct, it would be the same. But as with all languages, I think people kind of just shorten the sentences and drop a word here or there. So
What would it sound
well, I would probably go "Ke tla bona bosiu,"
like? Okay.
which is
That's
just
not too far apart.
No.
Okay.
it's just pronunciation and it's just a bit shortened. So
Okay. So I would obviously I'm still at the beginning of learning the language, so I'm trying to say it perfectly.
yes,
And the more you get into the language, the more you start sounding like a native speaker, obviously.
Yes.
So I would say "Ke tla go bona bosigo," and you would say?
"Ke tla bona bosiu."
Okay. All right. That's very cool. And this is why we're going to bring more and more people like John into these conversations to help us get a good feel of what the street language is. And because obviously we want to communicate as fluent and as easy as possible with the average person on the street. Thank you so much for being here today, John.
Yeah, cool.
It might not be the last time that we see you with these lessons, and I'm sure the listeners enjoyed it as well.
Yeah, it's been good. Thanks for having me.
Ke tla go bona ka nakwana.